This is perhaps the most important moment in the history of TNI, and I have some thoughts that I would love to share with you. And very rare for me, I've written things down. Okay. I want to start with a poem. This is a poem that we know from the start of Journey of Souls. You would know the hidden realm where all souls dwell. The journey's way lies through death's misty fell. Within this timeless passage, a guiding light does dance, lost from conscious memory, but visible in trance. I'd like to share with you a little bit of Michael. The first part of this video comes from an interview that was done with him in 2007 in Chicago. The second snippet is him teaching in Santa Fe in 2006.
Show on camera.
Well, you know what? That translates as a kind of Gary Cooper.
A mellowness.
Gary Cooper
Yeah.
kind of,
I was thinking of that, yeah. I'll become serene like the Dalai Lama.
That's right. Because, once you sort of have figured out the meaning of life, it just
Right.
goes without saying that you
Right.
would,
Right.
just, what's the
Right.
stress? There's no stress to it.
You look more alive now than the day we arrived.
Really?
Being involved in this and getting out there, it brings some.
Boy, I don't
I know
know.
you may feel tired, but you look more vibrant.
Jeez, Paul, I'm glad to hear that. I don't know.
Great. Okay. First, let me ask you, is it okay if I put you on tape?
Oh, of course.
Okay, and just tell me your name, if you could, please.
Okay, Dr. Michael Newton.
And where are you from?
I was originally born and raised in Los Angeles and had my practice in Los Angeles for many years. And after I retired and moved to Northern California, the books became more and more popular. And so from there, I began to see clients again for a few more years, and then I retired about 5 years ago.
And tell me, just basically, where'd you grow up, and was there any experience in your life as a young person that sort of led you to believe there might be something other than what you were seeing on the planet?
I was born and raised in Hollywood, and I went to a very demanding prep school in Los Angeles, Harvard. At that time it was a military school, and I'm very anti-military. And I had a reaction against the demands of the school that one had to attend chapel every day. And I felt even at that young age that there had to be something better than what was being taught in terms of a more traditional religious experience. And so from that very early time, I began studying philosophy, comparative religions. Then later, after I got out of school, years later, I traveled the world. I spent time in Buddhist monasteries, and just, looking for another way. And actually, I have my clients to thank for bringing me to the party, because I think what we do today in our work can be akin to a middle way between atheism and fundamentalism. I think there's a large segment of the population that is looking for something different than institutionalized religious thought, spirituality, and that of the atheist who simply believes in nothingness. But many atheists I've known, and I was one myself for many years, are not really satisfied that much with that philosophy, the older they get especially. And so I've been told that the people who come to our institute to learn the techniques that we have to teach with regard to life between lives under deep hypnosis are looking to gain a new insight as to the purpose of our existence here. Who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? These age-old questions are now being answered, I think, in many ways through the kind of hypnosis that we use to reach into the inner mind. I want to move very slowly here. Even with a more advanced client, I like to move slowly at the gateway. Now, it may be true that your client is not ready to cross just yet. They're in a hospital room hovering on the ceiling. I think you probably all know this, but in case you don't, the first thing souls do when they die, most of them, unless they're highly advanced, is hover over their bodies, and they can see friends and relatives if they're in a hospital or if they're in a funeral home or whatever, and some of them even want to know if Mabel brought flowers. Now, that usually indicates a younger soul. But I don't want them to get confused or disoriented. So, as I say, I take my time here. Now, in your training manual on page 20, we have a little piece in there to prepare your client for movement away from Earth. And on page 20 in your training manual, by the way, it's on page 72 in your textbook, this is a typical instruction. We're now going to a place of expanded awareness because you are moving upwards into the highest realms of all-knowing spiritual power. Even though you are only at the gateway to this realm, your soul can feel the joy at being released into this higher mental realm, which will become very familiar to you as we progress, because you know this realm is filled with love and peace. You're now going to move away from your body in perfect comfort. Soon you will receive help in releasing all negative energy. I do not see the harm in preparing someone for what lies ahead, rather than just throwing them in. Some people might say, oh, you're leading the client. I don't think so. I'm sorry, I just don't think so in this case. You'll be entering your eternal home where you'll be able to tell me about your immortal life. Now that might be arguable, that's preconditioning on my part, yes. You'll be able to speak to me freely and give me all the answers I want. No. You will be able to see all the lives you've lived before with objectivity and understanding, because this is a realm of perfect harmony. Now let us begin to move.
Michael Newton was a visionary. In 2011, we met with him to talk about the future of our institute, and he was well prepared. He handed out this document to us, and I kept mine on the same paper, printed on his little inkjet printer at home. And it's titled A Vision of Our Mission. And this is who we are and what we do. And there's no more fitting testimonial to a visionary than his own words. We want to bring a new form of personal spiritual awakening to an ever-expanding range of people around the globe. I see our mission as twofold. First, through training and supporting our practitioners, and secondly, to foster public awareness of the benefits we are able to offer people seeking to uncover spiritual knowledge within their own minds. Our movement is designed to help human beings mentally become whole by connecting with the essence of oneness in their life between lives, and while in this life, experiencing a transformational discovery of the true nature of their eternal soul within the matrix of a physical brain. We were founded at the beginning of a new millennium. This was an auspicious time for an organisation devoted to individual spiritual development. Today, the earth is in an international crisis of nationalistic fundamentalism, with militant states coupled with overpopulation around the world. Drug abuse is rampant where many wish to escape from the reality of their lives. I believe that much of the frustration of people living in a more stressful, technological and environmentally challenged world comes not from knowing their true identity of self or purpose. Many feel lost and disconnected. Our basic goal then is to help people move beyond the mindless strife in their physical existence to an inner peace through self-discovery. As we approach our 10th year of existence, the Newton Institute is gaining a wider influence in a world that is becoming more difficult for the individual. We live in a time when self-determination is being eroded by globalisation, multinationalism and internationalism. This intensification of institutional power and control over an ever-expanding population stifles empowerment of the individual. The focus of what we do is devoted to the individual seeking answers to the age-old questions of who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? Cultural antagonism between people that often involves superstitious dogma seems to be diminishing slowly, and we should contribute to this change. Much that divides us spiritually would be further diminished by the knowledge that we all come from the same spiritual sphere and will return at the end of our lives to this same universal place of origin, regardless of who we are, where we live, and what we do. A belief that is divine power, greater than ourselves, exists. Without human disciplines, but with a personal spiritual guide, would bring greater harmony to society. The healing of each individual that experiences a spiritual framework of loving order will help others whom they touch in society. In this way, our message will expand by the work we do. For spiritual unity to take place, we cannot depend on the methods of current religious practices on one hand, or science on the other, to bring answers to the great mystery of life. Our organisation is pledged to offer a new way with enlightenment springing from the mind of each individual regardless of their prior institutional belief, system or lack of it. In the complex world of the 21st century, people need the conviction more than ever that a divine universal consciousness exists within a pure spiritual order. They must discover this principle within their own minds for real conviction to take place. Eventually, if enough people come to this realisation through our efforts, there will hopefully be a lessening of external conflict in our struggle for survival. The ethical compass of humanity would have a stronger meaning since it would come from personal enlightenment. TNI teaches that the core purpose of souls who come to earth in their incarnations is to bring love, compassion and understanding to others who cross their lives. This moral imperative is blended into our personal karmic purpose to improve life on earth by our being here. Defining individual identity through our hypnosis methodology helps people advance the level of their own energy. The realisation of our universal divinity as united souls on earth, each with a conscious knowledge of self and purpose, would allow for a more positive destiny in our future on this planet. The dissemination of these ideas will allow TNI to grow larger and more effective in the process of expanding our mission in the world. Michael, the author. His books have and will continue to change the world. They have found their way into the right hands at the right time, bringing hope and inspiration to so many people. Many times over the years I've had emails where just the reading of the books have awakened a soul, touching and remembering deep inside where a person's soul says, "Yes, I am here, and been waiting your whole life to know you." If we were to put all the books that have been published end to end, they would stretch for over 140 miles. The partnership with Llewellyn Publishing has been amazing. Sandra Weschke and Bill Krause, thank you for your vision. Without you, many of us would never have been able to answer the call to purpose that LBL has offered us. Llewellyn have published the books now in Bulgarian, Chinese, Croatian, Danish, Estonian, Finnish, French, Hungarian, English, Hindi, Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Bahasa, Hebrew, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Latvian, Arabic, Lithuanian, Spanish, Dutch, Norwegian, Portuguese, Romanian, Russian, Czech, Slovak, Slovenian, Spanish, Swedish, German, Turkish, Polish, Vietnamese, and Australian. 2006 saw the refounding of our organisation from a previous one. The Newton Institute emerged into a new energy. 2005 had seen us with around 50 therapists across the USA and some parts of Europe, though we blossomed in 2006. Renamed after our founder himself, which he originally fought against and was eventually overruled by his own people. Such was the humility of the man. In just 2 months, we trained another 80 students on 2 large-scale trainings, one north of London and the other in New Mexico. It was like Spirit was behind us pushing, as we had a message crucial to humanity. That was the year we first encapsulated what we offer in just one sentence: awakening an understanding of your immortal identity. A group of our people came together after the UK training to plan the future of TNI, and we started by drawing an inspirational card. Michael pulled the card Passion. We waited with bated breath to hear him talk about his purpose for humanity, though he quietly turned to the woman next to him, Peggy Newton, and said, "Passion is about being married to your soulmate for 50 years. More about Peggy later. On the way back from the UK, I spent several hours in Heathrow Airport with Michael and Peggy, and Michael told stories. It's an afternoon that I've replayed in my mind 100 times. And here's one I'd like to share. Back in the early days of the publishing of Journey of Souls, it was making its way into bookshops across America. He was doing so many book signings, the easiest way to go from town to town was to pile up boxes of books in his old station wagon and drive across the country. So this is what he and Peggy did. After the end of a long haul, he'd pulled into a roadside motel, and across on the other side of this super highway that you all have here was a diner, probably a Burger King, and a couple of other things over there. So they were exhausted after their travels. And Peggy went to the room and she wanted to lie down, and Michael said, "I'll go across and I'll get us something to eat and I'll bring it back to the room." So Michael got out to the car, and his guide had been somewhat passive for all those years, but his guide was very, very emphatic. Go across to the diner and go now. It was urgent. So Michael jumped in his car and he got down there and he's looking both ways, and his guide says, "Go now." He puts his foot down and he tears across this 6-lane highway and into the diner, and he pulls up outside the diner. And his guide says, go inside, go now. Okay. So he moved up the steps, he moved inside that diner, and he looked around, and it was virtually empty. Over in the corner, though, was a young family. A young mother and father and their daughter was sitting in a high chair, and she was blue. Okay. She swallowed a chicken bone. So Michael moved over there quickly, and he picked that little girl up out of a chair and said, "I'm going to help you." And he turned her around and he did the Heimlich manoeuvre. Okay? And this chicken bone flew out of her mouth and flew across the table, and he turned that little toddler around to him, and there was a telepathic connection between them. And the message he had from that child said, "Thank you. My time here is not done. I have things to do." So he handed that child back to the parents. He bought some food. He went back to the motel. And Peggy said, "What took you?" I wonder what that child's doing today. Something important, no doubt. Michael retired from teaching in 2007. 4 years later, we held a training in San Damiano Retreat Centre outside San Francisco in 2011. It was partially a plot to lure Michael there, hatched by Paul, as I recall. At first he said no. Then a few weeks later, reluctantly agreed to come. Then a couple of weeks later, he asked to address the students. And within a few weeks more, he was teaching a segment. Now, I remember speaking to him at that time, and he was worried that we wouldn't have enough students attend. "Pete, I'm going to grab the yellow pages and make some phone calls to local past life therapists and ask them to come." I replied that I didn't think that was a great idea and wasn't really necessary. However, as always, he carved his own path. He called one lady and introduced himself as Michael Newton. Her response was priceless. "I love those books. Everyone knows that. You say you are the Michael Newton? Sure. Who are you and who put you up to this?" When we next spoke, Michael said, "Pete, maybe I should have listened to you." It's impossible to talk about Michael and not mention the love of his lifetimes, his beautiful and wise Peggy. For years, his confidant, his guide and inspiration. Her level-headed feedback helped shape this emerging field of spiritual exploration in ways that she will never acknowledge. Michael did that. He spoke to me often about the importance of a helpmate in a life of purpose. Many of you have met Peggy and felt her wisdom and her heart-filled hugs, often at our trainings where she worked alongside us when new people were called to join the Newton Institute family. Finally, we were able to honour her with the establishment of the Peggy Newton Award for Outstanding Service to TNI, which has been awarded just 5 times in our history. Whilst our numbers are small in comparison to some organisations, we are strategically placed across 40 countries. We are destined to keep the work pure and follow the legacy we have been gifted. Whilst many have claimed or embellished their association with Michael over the years, on this point he was clear. The integrity of the work is everything. These journeys we offer are a sacred experience to be offered in the energy of deep service to the people who come to us. Michael only endorsed our own trainings and our own people, bound by a strong spiritual code of ethics. Whilst the afterlife belongs to everyone as our true home, his own method of accessing it should be carried on in the same energy in which it was created. This we will do. Michael's original 7,000 cases of Life Between Life clients has now been expanded to over 30,000 by those of us called to join him in what has become our collective purpose for humanity. So now, in the words of our own people, around 4 years ago we came up with an idea to honour the man who had changed all of our lives. He had helped us discover our own souls. For Michael's 80th birthday, we asked our TNI member therapists to write him a letter about how his work had changed their lives. At that time, 100 letters came from you, from all over the world. We had them bound and made into a leather journal and presented to him on his birthday by Bryn and Judith. And here are just a few of your words. It comes from a book where the title page says the passion of one man becomes the purpose of many. And these personal letters are offered to a man who has made a lifelong contribution to the evolution of humanity's consciousness. The LBL therapists who now take this work further to new horizons embrace their purpose as ambassadors and facilitators of a realm that exudes unconditional love, unparalleled wisdom, and everlasting peace. Each person like me that your research touches turns into 1 more, 10 more, 100 more, and so on. It is spreading like a wildfire around the world, truly making a difference for the better. Thank you, Judith. Probably each of us TNI ambassadors signed up in the spirit world to do this work. I feel blessed and privileged to be one of the LBL therapists and assist people using your findings and research. Thank you, Reefa. When I learned that you too had at first found it difficult to accept such ideas, that was somehow an additional motivation for me. It made me feel more intimately drawn to this work that I would surely have never encountered but for your pioneering. Through your example, you have also helped me to better appreciate the very complementary way that curiosity balances skepticism in my own life. Thank you, Jimmy. I've worked as a hospice chaplain for many years and have seen how the fear of death often brings great pain and contraction, confusion and sorrow. I love holding the vision of how LBL experience can liberate people from so much of the sorrow that I have seen. Thank you for opening the way. Thank you so much. Earnestly, I believe your method is a key for humanity's next steps towards consciousness evolution. You have a unique combination of genius, persistence, common sense and wisdom without being a guru, but with gentleness, decency and humour. Thank you, Dora. Your life's work, the development, research and documentation of life between lives has made such a significant impact in my life. The journey and experience of my own immortal soul in the spirit realm has shifted my understanding and purpose in my current incarnation. Thank you, Robert. Spiritual regression and integration therapy represents a new level of intervention in the lives of those who are seeking purpose and meaning. I feel honoured to be entrusted with this knowledge and with the privilege of continuing what you have begun. Thank you, Alex. This is an unequalled gift that has the potential to benefit all of humanity. Your total dedication, unwavering determination, and incredible discipline have resulted in a completely new form of therapy that you so clearly mapped for those of us who continue the work. Thank you, Paul. This is our founder, our teacher, our friend, our inspiration. We are the custodians of much more than this methodology. We are the keepers of a flame of hope for humanity that this work brings. We can set people free from all that holds them back. We can awaken their soul in order to show them their magnificence. Whatever they feel traps them in this lifetime is merely an illusion. This small chapter in the lineage of their souls brings eternal evolution at the core of their being. This is everyone's truth. They simply need to remember. And that, my dear friends and fellow LBL therapists, is what is required for humanity to ascend to a new level of consciousness. For more than 7 billion people were suddenly to remember this simple fact, that they are a spiritual being having a human experience, our world would change in an instant. Michael's own flame must be kept alive by us as the TNI family. We must tell stories, share what he told us, talk about body surfing with Paul, talk about the different things, Bryn's interactions with him, talk about the wonderful things that we've seen and done with him in days gone by. This is our folklore now, and we can keep his spirit close by opening our hearts and telling those of us who never met him who he was, what he loved, his wisdom, his humour, sometimes his gruffness. We must continue to share the stories that he told us. During this week that we spend together here, we can share the energy of the legend that is Michael Newton. That's what families do as they pass the baton from generation to generation. When Michael retired from teaching the first time, he spoke at the closure of our Chicago training in 2007. We didn't know at the time that next day he would announce his retirement at a meeting of the TNI board. Then we needed a short adjournment to pull ourselves back together, as we were pretty much all in tears. His closing remarks were secretly recorded and now part of our snippets of wisdom that we hold dear. And I'd like to share the audio recording with you now from 2007. And I want to thank Reefa for providing that to us as well.
You've all been a wonderful class. It's been a lot of fun. Every class is different, and you have your own special nuances that we all remember, and every class is very interesting to deal with, and you are a unique class too, and we learned a lot, I think. I just want to impress upon you that having gone through this process now yourself, I hope you all understand that this is going to make you a much better therapist, an LBL therapist. There are people out there that practice LBL without ever considering coming here and learning it properly. They work just out of the book, and I don't know, I guess a lot of you do fine. But having been through this process yourself is going to make you a better therapist. You've gained insight and understanding and passion from this. And I want to tell you all that with this brings a sacred trust. You are going to be, remember my opening remarks on the first day, working within your subject's inner mind and the dual nature between their brain and their soul. It carries an awesome responsibility that goes far beyond what you've done with past life regression. Yes, I'm very prejudiced, okay? And yes, I'm biased and all those other awful things. But I firmly believe in this. And there's something else I want to mention to you. Because of the fact that there are so few of you out there, it can bring good financial rewards, yes. But what worries some of us is that that can be a corrupting influence if you let it happen. You have got to maintain your humility and keep your ego in check during the years ahead when you're going to be in areas where you're going to be the only person that can do this. Okay, we hope in the decades ahead this is going to change, but in the years ahead it probably won't. So you have to have, as Pete has mentioned, a very strong moral compass. Never forget that you are the servants of your clients and that you have this sacred trust to take them into a very sacred place and to encourage them to open their innermost feelings to you and deal with this in a way that befits the kind of work that you're doing. So I just want to leave you with the thought that I hope you will always retain this humility and that you work with courage and dedication and wisdom. And I want to wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
The final word is now Michael's. He wrote me in 2014 this email, and I'd forgotten about it until Mark reminded me about it a little while ago. Dear Pete, I've been sending a number of postings recently, but this will be my last for a while. I've often thought, maybe due to my age, that TNI should have some sort of eulogy to use at the funerals for other TNI members. Everyone is much younger than I am, so I know this is something that may come up down the line. Well, it did. I'd now like to close with the words that Michael felt he was writing for us, but now it's our gift to him. We, your loved ones and friends, are gathered here today to honour the completion of the physical life for Michael. Your immortal spirit shall still have a presence with those in need by touching our minds and hearts until the time when our own trials on this planet are finished. Eventually, all our souls will join you in an eternal world of peace and love. In the meantime, we will continue to bless your memory. Like you, each of us has a spiritual contract to do our best to fulfill the promise of a rewarding life to be lived on this long road under the stars. You have met that commitment in so many ways that are all your own. With each lifetime we may falter, make mistakes, and not always make the best choices on our path, yet the mark of progress is to keep picking ourselves up after setbacks and continue to move forward in our development. At the end, we are assessed by our intent in life and not so much by what we do for ourselves, but rather by how much we have helped others along the way. And so we ask your guide to make the transition back to your soul companions as reassuring as possible on the return journey home to the spirit world, where you will be welcomed with compassion by those waiting for you. We trust you will be acclaimed for a life well served, since we are all measured by the love and memory of those left behind who were part of your love. Your spirit has exemplified the true meaning of confronting life's challenges, and it is now time for you to rest and reflect upon your accomplishments. We do this in concert with you this day. Michael Newton was a man of great wisdom, humour and humility. In my last conversation with him a week or so before he passed, he summarised what we do as follows. We have something to offer people in terms of personal meaning that they can't get elsewhere. And there's a reason for that, as it comes from within themselves. Namaste, Michael.
Namaste.
Thank you.